right. Hello, hello, hello. Let me know if you drop in here, if you can hear me, because I have not used this in a very long time. So I appreciate anybody who can give me a comms check. Welcome in. Thank you for being here. If you're watching this on a replay or anything, I appreciate you as well. Let's see. I think, yeah, let's pop it over to Instagram as well. All right. Oh, thank you, Kamer Bear. Okay. Well, guys, it's great to be with you. We have been burning up the roads the last, probably 6 weeks. We have been all over this great country, over 10,000 miles on the road the last 6 weeks. So out to Montana, out to Washington State, out to Missouri, out to Reno, Nevada, and most recently out to Texas. I wish I could say all of that in one big trip, but there were multiples all involved. So it's a real adventure over here. We're learning how to manage that life. Mr. Landfill is saying video not starting, but now 5x5. Good deal. Okay, so I want to share some stuff I learned this past weekend specifically. We went out to Real World Sniper Challenge in Mountain Home, Texas, the finale. If you have not seen this, check out their website and all their media. It is an epic sniper challenge where 2-man or 2-person teams compete for bragging rights and some epic prizes as sniper teams. So some of them are enlisted, some are just mere civilians like you and I. And at the end of the day, you've got a huge challenge, a 2-day event, a 2.5-day event where they compete on a point system, which a lot of it is skills based and just challenge that doesn't even involve shooting, that you would never even think about when you think of a sniper. But you might be wondering, what does this have to do with radio? Well, we just got back from providing radio for that event. So I learned a lot. It's the second time we've physically been there to do that, and the third time that we've provided radios. One time we were double booked, so we just sent radios out to them. But this time we got to be there in person and really put everything through its paces. And if you don't have this in your own life, as I have, you learn a lot more by doing than you do by talking about it or by theorizing. So I wanted to share some stuff I learned. I will warn you, if you are not a radio person, some of this might be overwhelming or just sound like nonsense. That's okay. Part of what I want to start off with is talk about, basically the reason we're doing this and what that could mean for you as just a regular person that might need radios for an event like a festival or a wedding or who knows what. But you don't want to learn all the stuff I'm about to talk about. We do provide what I'm affectionately calling RaaS, radio as a service. Radios show up in a box. You take them out, you turn them on, you run your event. Very simple. At the end of the event, you turn them off, you put them back in the box and ship them back, right? So why would you want to do that? Well, think about this. If you one of the events that's near and dear to my heart that we have a lot of experience with this is Self-Reliance Festival. And we have not been able to be there the last couple of times, but they need comms to run this event. It covers a huge area with a bunch of staff. And how do they handle that? Well, we ship them a box of radios that are set up. They turn them on, they use them, and then they put them back in the box and send them back to me. And what's the benefit of that? Well, what we send them or what we brought to this event this past weekend would be potentially $10,000 or more worth of equipment that you'd have to purchase to use for just a couple days out of the year. And it is not only something you'd have to purchase, but you'd have to maintain it. It would depreciate, it would become out of date in time, and you'd have to figure out how to manage all of it, right? So there's a lot of benefit if you're an event planner or a coordinator, or you do work where radios would be handy just a few days out of the year. Hit us up about radio as a service. I think is something that I want to continue to offer to people. We've developed quite a fleet of radios. I'm going to show you a few today, how we set them up for this event. Very high quality radios that you can use and then shoot back to us when you're done. So big benefit to that if you are enjoying the fun of doing an event, but you don't want to get into radio ownership. So turnkey rental service is something you can get from us. So let's talk about this event, Real World Sniper. The way it is set up is there's a team of people that run the event. Obviously, the event staff. There's one kind of head honcho for the event. That was Nick over from Dark Corner Concepts. And Nick's actually who invited us out. And he's kind of the ringleader of all this, in charge. The buck stops with him. Had probably 10 to 15 volunteer staff or people that work for him in some capacity, including myself for that event. And then in this case, 8 total 2-person teams that were competitors. And let me just break down how we had to approach this comms solution. So I'm putting a graphic up here on the screen. Essentially, we needed 16 radios. So one for Nick. Nick is there in the center of this graphic, and he is the event lead here. And over here on the left are his 7 additional radios for his event staff. This would be like range officers or drivers or people that they are interfacing with. And then over on the right, you'll see 8 teams. So each team needed a radio. And that is not just for the fun of it. The radios in this case were actually integrated into the competition itself, into the stages. So we did 2 scenarios where the teams used the radios specifically to compete. So I want to talk about how we approach that and how it works. But something that you should be aware of is we were able, with DMR, which is a digital radio, we were able to do all of this on a single frequency. All right. So we were able to manage an entire event staff and 8 separate teams that, by the way, they were not able to hear one another. So that's 9 different channels basically going on simultaneously. Really more than that. We'll get into the weeds here in a second. But all that going on a single VHF frequency, a commercial frequency that we license for ourselves. And it's really cool to be able to work this out. So I want to talk through how we pull that off, because I think even if this is just for my own benefit, right, to talk through how in the world this worked, I want to talk about how we approach the problem. So first of all, a little bit about DMR, just touching the surface. DMR is a digital mode on voice for radio. Certain radios can do it. It's different than analog in that one very specific thing about it is it divides a frequency into 2 what are called time slots. Now, time slot is a real fancy word, but basically it's an alternating, it's basically like we cut the channel in half, right? But instead of cutting it in half, actually, you take turns so rapidly that you don't notice you're taking turns. So we switch from time slot 1 to time slot 2 so rapidly that they can actually be on top of each other without having any kind of interference. So if you kind of think of your fingers interlocking, um, my right hand would be time slot one, my left hand would be time slot two, and they fill those gaps that one another creates, causing no interference. So when you look back at this diagram, we basically just divide the event staff over on the left into time slot one and the teams onto time slot two, and we don't have any interference, even though we're on one big happy frequency, which blows my mind that we can do something like that. And you might wonder, why would you not just pick two frequencies? You certainly could, but this is what's cool about DMR is you get a license for a frequency and it's basically double the value, right? With DMR, one frequency is two, right? You can do the job of two frequencies with a single channel. So we kind of worked that out, and I can say without a doubt we proved that that works. Okay, so I'm pumped about that. Just nerding out with what we can do. You know, I've done it plenty of times, but not with this complex of a setup. Now, I did mention for all of these, we used a VHF frequency. Now, we were at the YO Ranch in Mountain Home, Texas. It's the Texas Hill Country. And if you remember, not that long ago, there was some pretty severe flooding that tragically took some lives of some children at Camp Mystic. That was this county where this competition was at the YO Ranch. It is a massive ranch. I think the driveway is 7 miles. So, a 7-mile long driveway just to get to the what do we call it? You know, the gathering room at the middle of the property. That's not even the back of the property. So, give me just a moment. My wife is asking me for a code. She is at Home Depot picking up plumbing parts for me. Oh, goodness. If you're on here, sweetheart, I'm very sorry that you decided to do this, or I decided to do this while you needed me. I'm screenshotting you what I've got. My mistake, not yours. So VHF, why is that helpful? Well, this is an incredibly rural area, not a lot of structures to deal with, but we want long distance. So um, being able to cover as much of that ranch as we can with no centralized infrastructure, right? We had no repeaters. We had handheld radios with nothing that could do anything other than just radio to radio. And we covered that place, zero issue. There were some fuzzy spots, but a little bit of movement always seemed to solve it. And we could talk end to end over this property on a VHF simplex frequency. Digital is cool because it's going to give you really good voice clarity, really good sound quality instead of the fuzziness that you get with analog. But at the edges, analog is going to win because you don't get any fuzziness with digital. It's just not there at all. It's pass fail. So I was very pleased with that. The performance of VHF. My buddies over at my phone is ringing. You know, everything has to happen. I rarely ever go live, but the one time I need to do this, here we are. So my buddies over at Brush Beater, specifically NC Scout, has a really helpful way of remembering UHF. The U in UHF is for urban. It works really well in and around structures. VHF, on the other hand, is better in an unobstructed environment. Can completely speak to that now with experience, even with handhelds. So looking back at our chart, like I said, left-hand side of the screen is the event staff 7 radios. They were on time slot 1. And on the right-hand side of the screen, 8 radios. They are on time slot 2. And then our event leader in the middle there. Now, the lines connecting are actually the different types of communication. I'm about to get into that, and that's where this might get a little heady. But this is yet another incredible thing that digital radio does that nothing else can do quite this way. So if you needed to separate this traffic normally, we would need 9 channels, right? We would need one channel per team, different frequencies altogether, and then an event staff channel. So 9 channels. We did this on a single frequency. We would have needed 9. So pretty incredible. Let me tell you how we pulled that off. Remember, I mentioned, well, hopefully you remember. It's been a long time since I've been blabbing, and we're not even done. So the teams, in this case, for the benefit of their experience, they should not be able to hear one another, right? They need isolation. So that's why on an analog radio, we would need them on separate frequencies or channels. But the cool thing is with DMR, we have another construct other than just a frequency. With analog, we have this other construct called radio IDs and talk groups. So the way I set this up, the event staff, they're in one big talk group. Think of it as a group chat, right? They all belong to that group chat. They can hear one another, and the team lead or the event lead is in that group. That group is defined on that channel. So that's pretty cool. He just goes to that channel called, we called it operations in this case. And he can talk to those people. Now I'll show you his radio, the way I set it up. That is not what I want. Here we go. This was his radio, and I put a lanyard on it with a little glow nut lanyard from Ridge Runner Blades, and this identified his radio. It's also labeled number 1, but if that rubbed off, you just know this is his. Nobody else has had this lanyard. Very important because his radio had godlike powers, so to speak. And we'll talk about why only his radio had that. But his radio was able to talk to that talk group for event staff on the left-hand side, and then 8 private calls to each team, right? So a private call means I only want this transmission to be heard by a certain radio ID. So this is not a group chat. This is a DM, right? I want a DM to team A, a DM to team B, and so on and so forth. And that is controlled at the channel level in this case. So he had 8 additional channels for voice that were unique to each team. Now, the team radios, they only needed one channel in them, and it was a private call to the event leader, right? So they have a private call, a single private call channel to the event leader. He has 8 private call channels, 1 to each team. And now we have this beautiful situation where no one can hear everyone else, even though they're on the same channel, on the same frequency, even on the same time slot. But if he's talking to Alpha Team on a private call, there's no need for anybody to hear that. And so they won't hear it. They will only hear it directed to a certain radio ID and so on. So pretty cool. That we were able to pull that off. The event lead radio is the only one that can do all of this, and this is something I really proved out. Theoretically, I know to be true just from teaching and dealing with technical problems. The simpler you can make something, the better, right? And that's kind of the purpose of our company anyway. But in this case, if I had handed everyone a radio that could do all of that, that would be a major liability that they were going to mess it up, right? And people managed to mess this up without that problem, right? I had dialed it down, but people still managed to run into some stuff. And I definitely see the value of only giving that complexity to the event lead. So the event lead is the only guy who needs all 9 of those channels or however many channels it requires. The event staff, they have one channel in the radio. It's called operations. That's it. It talks to everyone in that group. They don't care about the teams. They don't talk to the teams. They don't deal with that. In this case, the team radios were for a specific challenge. So they did not require interaction with each other or with the staff through those radios. It was there to be a part of their actual stage that they were in. So the only person doing that was the event lead. So he's the only one that had those channels. The team radios only had one channel in them for talking to the event lead. Now, they had different names that were related to the stage, but you get the idea. So I was very impressed with that. We did both voice comms and text comms with these radios. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. I learned some really helpful things. But that's how we kind of architected this, if you want to call that architecture. I know I used to be a systems architect back in the day, so I would cringe at someone calling this graphic an architecture diagram, but it's the kindergarten level of that, right? So the team lead or the event lead radio set up. Now, some specific things about his radio that was different than everyone else's. It had sub channel turned on, meaning it can monitor 2 channels, not just one. For a regular lowly event staff, this is on single channel mode. So if you probably can't see, but the one radio is a little more complicated on the screen than the other. That goes back to that idea of keep that thing as simple as it can be. There is no reason to have sub channels enabled on somebody's radio that needs to be one place at one time. On the other hand, the event lead needed to be able to monitor both the event staff and the teams at the same time. And if he didn't have sub channel turned on, he'd need 2 radios. And what a burden that would be, right? So we were able to definitely benefit from that capability, but you have to shrink it down to only the necessary features, even down to disabling buttons, right? And this is something I would have done differently, is just disable the ability to go into frequency mode altogether for everyone in the event. There's no reason for anyone to go into frequency mode. When they get there, they panic. They don't know what to do. I did teach them what to do to get back into channel mode where the memories are saved. But just to avoid that altogether, be great just to disable that. There is a feature on these particular radios called professional mode that kind of locks it down, similar to a business radio or something that a police officer, firefighter would have, where the front buttons don't really do a whole lot. And that's something we could have used. So we also did not, you notice these are kind of boring looking. So there's something missing that we usually do to all our radios is we upgrade the antennas usually, right? They usually look like this. Now, this is actually exactly what they usually look like. And there's a big problem with this is our students, our staff, anyone using these radios, they like to keep the antenna tied in a knot like this. Now, these are our foul weather whips that we carry from ZBM2. They are excellent antennas, but they are miserably performing when they're tied in a knot like this. So why do people tie them in a knot? Well, this thing is almost 19 inches long when it's untied. It's not fun to carry that around. So people carry it like this. And this is how I usually hand it to them because it's easier for me to store it when it's like this, right? So we downgraded everybody to the stock B-Tech antenna, which doesn't suck. It's not a bad antenna. But for at least for the event staff, we ran the whole thing with stock antennas. And maybe I am just getting older and less prone to care about fashion. I'm not sure, but I would have never dreamed of not upgrading to a cool, more higher performing antenna, but we didn't, and they worked great. The only thing I would do different is if we were using UHF, I might have put the monoband whips on from ZBM2, the foul weather monoband whip, which is about the same size, but at least they would be B and C. so that you can get them on and off quickly. These are SMA, so you got to thread them on and off. Despite them being threaded on and off, one of the event staff managed to lose their antenna. It was a good lesson for me to have extra stuff on hand. I pride myself in being prepared for things that can go wrong, and um, I fell right on my face with that this time. I did not have a spare stock antenna. I had tons of spare BNC antennas in my bag in my day pack, but I did not have one of these, so I ended up having to drive back to my room, like I said, this is a massive property, so I had to drive back, get in my big bag, find an antenna out of an unused radio box, and by the time I got back with the antenna, they had actually found the missing antenna in the middle of the road. Somehow he had dropped it in the road. Somebody found it, and it solved itself. But good lesson there in having spare stuff. You should have, if you're running an event like this, and we would send this, if we supply you with radios for an event, we will send extra antennas, extra batteries, even a couple spare radios, because radios go down. They break. People lose them. They can malfunction. Anything can happen. So having spares of the right stuff, super important. It's something that you can really only learn what that list needs to look like through experience. But I think that will definitely be part of our service, is making sure you're equipped with extras of the things that are most likely to go wrong. So I really like that. A hero of the event was this guy. This is a 30 port USB charger. Okay. 30 ports. It's a monster. Okay. And 30 cables plugged into it, ready to go. And it all runs off of a single plug. All right. That right there, guys, I cannot express to you how beautiful it is to have a way to charge all these radios. 16 radios, all charging off of one plug. You get in a big room full of people, outlets are at a premium. And if you need to charge these radios in the cradles, you need 16 outlets. That's crazy talk, right? Or you need to bring a big old 8-foot surge protector with you, right? So that guy was a big a great thing to have. But I did learn something that I'm going to change. Honorable mention, though, before I get to that, I just whacked my microphone. We do have a 4-gang charger for this, and these kind of nest, they click together, so you could take 4 of these for 16 radios, but they take up a lot of space. What I love about that is related to the thing I learned, though. What I love about these 4-gang chargers that the USB version does not provide, any ideas what I love about this? Here's a clue. See how those are stuck in there? They're not flopping around. With the USB charger, yes, it can do a lot with one plug. You have to find a way to lay all those radios somewhere safely. So I chose a window ledge, and I learned within about the first 3 minutes that that was not a safe place, because these dangling cables ended up dropping, causing the radios to drop onto the floor. And you have to find a place to lay these out. They need to lay on their back, because the charging port is on the bottom of the radio. So you can't stand this up on the table. So here's how I'm going to solve that. I'm going to build some sort of stand that holds these radios by the belt clips side by side. Probably 8 at a time, because 8 is a nice number. 8 fits in our SOE mini pack for a kit. 8 gives you enough to equip most teams for search and rescue or for an event or for whatever you got going on. So I will make a stand that holds these radios above a table, maybe 3 inches off the ground, just enough not to make them tippy, right? You don't want a high center of gravity, but being able to get these up off the table so that you can plug them in. You can organize them so you could put labels to be able to um, get them in a certain order or identify who is who, but definitely need some kind of stand. I'm going to add that to the kit. Another thing that I do this on my personal radio. This is my personal radio as I used it for the event. I did have the higher performance antenna because I'm willing to deal with it, right? But I wouldn't wish that on everyone. I don't know if you'll be able to see this. Probably not. But I've laser engraved that belt clip. It has my name and my logo on that belt clip. We have a 30-watt fiber laser here at the shop now. I have been using silver Sharpies for a long time to try to label things. You see, this is Radio 4. That silver Sharpie is going to wear off. It will wear off on a day that I need it to be visible. I have added radio IDs to the boot screen. That's fairly frustrating to get to because you have to turn the radio off, but it is nice to have. It can't rub off, obviously, if it's on the boot screen. But laser engraving it on the belt clip, especially for our rental fleets, that is something I want to do for everything. And pro tip, if you put in your order notes that you would like your belt clip laser engraved, put in there that Evan said you could get it for free. Tell me what you want on it. And I'm happy to do that for you guys to personalize them, especially if you're working with a big bag of radios, right? So I would change that, how I label them and how I organize them while charging. But that's definitely one of the things I took away from the experience. Let me look here. I have some notes. Oh, so another thing I did in the programming that I would probably do again is I put a second zone in every radio, no matter who anyone was, no matter what their role was, with the NOAA weather stations in them. Now, I don't think anyone used them, but this is kind of a practice what you preach moment for me, in that and ironically, where we were doing this event, it had been affected by this flash flooding that killed people. Part of the reason it was able to take so many lives was, unfortunately, people did not hear about the flash flooding. And that could have been completely resolved by listening to a NOAA weather frequency and getting the direct warning right from the horse's mouth, not waiting on an Amber Alert, not waiting for a phone call from a family member, but hearing it right then and there. Sometimes you only have minutes, especially if you live in a floodplain and or whatever the weather event is. So that's something that I put in everybody's radio. I did demonstrate how to get to it. A zone is like a folder. So I did keep it isolated from the frequencies that were being used so you didn't deal with them. But that's something that I think should go in every radio. I think no matter where you're doing an event, there's a possibility that people could need to know what's going on with inclement weather or some sort of disaster. And that's going to be very valuable. So I've not heard of people doing that for events. I think that is something that should be a part of our protocol, just a standard procedure. So I think we're getting to the end of the things I would change or do differently. Let me talk about text messaging. This is one of the biggest frustrations we ran into, but really cool. If you don't know, these radios, these DMR radios, have the ability to text message radio to radio. Now, in the scenario that we put the teams in, and I hope I'm allowed to talk about this. I'll be as vague as I can. They were assigned a night stalking challenge for one of the stages, completely in the dark under nods. They were supposed to go undetected to an observation post and communicate their observations back to command and get approval to take a high value target. All right. Now, meaning, some like a terrorist. So this is all simulated, but we decided to do this by text message. Now, the reason for that is this would be a very low signature type of environment. That would be your priority, is to maintain low visibility and low audio signature. You don't want to be making noise, and a low RF signature, right? You want to minimize how much radio transmitting you're doing, because if anyone's monitoring with an SDR or some sort of scanner, and even if you have encrypted traffic, if they see it or they observe it, they're going to know somebody is there in their midst, and that might call off the operation. So text messaging is what you would want to do, or some kind of data. So we simulated that. And here's kind of the trick. It's incredibly complicated to maintain for one particular role. And again, this is this team lead or the event lead who is managing that information coming in from each team. That's a lot to deal with. Text messaging actually makes it easier than voice, but some important things I learned that I will do differently next time. Number one, I will pre-compose quick texts. You can actually pre-program the radio with messages, so you don't have to type them in. So you can just hit send and send it to your intended recipient. That would have been incredibly valuable at this event, because he needed to say the same thing many times, an acknowledgement or a command or an approval or whatever that was. And I actually, on the fly, got my laptop out and added those messages for him. But I wish we had done that ahead of time. That would have been a lot less stressful. Speaking of that, a workaround is any message you have sent and the radio goes into your outbox, and there is a forward option from the outbox. So if you have sent a message, you can open it up, hit forward, and then forward it to all 7 other teams. Let's say you were saying, you're approved to fire to all the teams. You can't send it to everyone at once, because that would be a group chat, and they are not in a group. They are on private calls, because they're independent. So you need to send it individually to 8 different parties, so you can use that forwarding functionality for that. I really was glad to discover that. Last thing about texting, 2 more things. I did train the teams to resend their texts if they did not get an acknowledgement after a minute had passed. Why would we do that? Well, we are spoiled with our text messaging that we use on our phones, that it is pretty much guaranteed to get where it's going, and we get read receipts, that sort of thing. These radios do have some of that functionality, but they're not depending on this epic infrastructure. It's point to point, radio to radio. And because of that, if you happen to be in a dead zone, your text is not going to get through. So I did train them how to quickly get to their outbox and resend a message. So they didn't have to type it again, but they did have to retransmit it. And, something to think about, if you're typing into this radio with it held horizontally, this is not the ideal orientation to be sending a transmission. You want it straight up and down, right? So you get better propagation out of the antenna. signal comes out of this antenna horizontally or perpendicularly to the antenna. So if it's laying flat, this is a problem. And I see students doing this in every class. I always, even holding it like this to talk, that's a different problem. The microphone is not down here. But for texting, it would be reasonable to have this laying flat while you text, but you want to have it upright. So for those reasons, I did teach them to resend. I did also train the event lead to send acknowledgement texts. Now, here is something that was probably the most frustrating thing about it, and it's just a quirk with this radio that I really am glad I learned this way. Say you are in the middle of typing a 2-sentence text out. Now, keep in mind, we have a 1 through or a 0 through 9 keypad. We're tapping out these texts. We don't have a QWERTY keyboard. It's very time consuming to hammer out even a short message. If you happen to be right in the middle of a message when you receive a text, you lose all your progress, right? Which is really frustrating when you are in a bind or you're under the gun or you're trying to get things done. You're almost done with your text and you're about to hit send and it wipes it out because you received a text. I have not found a way to prevent that, but what would prevent it is your lengthy text to have them pre-composed in your quick texts. So you just send them from there. You don't have to type them in. And that would be the way to work around that. That would definitely change. I watched it happen and then I had it happen to me. And man, you're ready to toss that radio off a cliff. When you've sent, you've typed in this message, 40, 50 characters long, and it's gone because somebody sent you a message, right? So kind of a quirk with the radio. There is a workaround with the quick texts pre-composing, but that's definitely something I would have changed. Last thing that I would about our design and that I might possibly change. If you look back at our architecture, the event lead would need to monitor all 8 team channels at one time, and that's not possible. They can only monitor 2 at a time, best case scenario. Why would they need to monitor all 8? Well, imagine they are all calling into the command center, in this case over voice, and how would he know who's calling in? Because remember, the channel in the radio is siloed or isolated to a particular team. So he had a channel in his radio called Team Alpha, and it only talks to Team Alpha. Team Bravo, Team Charlie could not hear him. That was by design. But we have a complication there that this adds. What do we do when all 8 people could possibly be calling in? How do you know where to be and when? Now, I anticipated that problem. It wasn't a huge problem because teams were going through stages one at a time. So as long as we, at the stage where they were going to need the radio, as long as we communicated that to the event lead, he would know where to be, right? Hey, Team Foxtrot is about to go, move to that channel, finish it. All right, Foxtrot is completed. We're going to Team Bravo. He could follow. That worked pretty much across the board with few exceptions. The alternative is I had my radio set up in what's called promiscuous monitoring. And what that does is it does not filter based on ID numbers. It just gets anything on frequency in that time slot, at least in that frequency, and you can hear it. So we had trained the teams to identify themselves verbally. They would call in with their team name, this is me format. So ISR, this is Team Bravo. ISR, this is Team Bravo. Do you read me? Well, I would hear them say that. And if I heard a long pause or if I heard them calling in, this is me multiple times over in my promiscuous monitoring mode, I would jump on the operations channel and tell the event lead, hey, Bravo team is calling in on ISR. He could go to that channel and we were up and running. Now, that requires a human resource to be able to do that, and or potentially just having a second radio. He could have done what I was doing with a second radio, but asking somebody trying to run an event to carry around multiple radios, good luck with that. So the way it should be solved, and the way I would most likely solve it if I needed to do it again, is I would have a scan list set up in this radio to scan through those 8 individual team channels continuously, so that it would stop when it hears activity. But I would only scan those 8 channels. All right. Now that does tie up the radio where you cannot hear the event staff. So that's a different problem. It's going to lock the radio to just team stuff. But if you didn't have an extra person that could do that for you, I think that would be the best way to handle this. It's a very unique situation where we need one guy to have private conversations with 8 separate teams. I think that would be pretty unusual in real life. We were trying to, if you look at this diagram for each team, I wanted it to feel like they had individual command and control comms, right, for just their team while they were running their scenario. And that's why we needed it. That would be an unusual use case for most events, but we did pull it off. So I'm really proud of that. And I'm honored to get the chance to experiment on, some people that really need this to work, right? I would say some key takeaways just about why this is so useful in this kind of environment. The YO Ranch is an incredible facility, beautiful place, very topographically diverse, valleys and mountains. Mountains, we'll call them hills. But one of the challenges in a place so remote where you can shoot machine guns and fly helicopters and do all this cool stuff is it's far away from infrastructure. Cell phones did not work unless you were up at the long range on a high point or at the teepees, or if you had Wi-Fi at the lodge, right? So even if you wanted to try to run this event with a phone, it just won't work. Everyone would need Starlink or something to be able to connect with their phones. You could use Meshtastic. You could use something different than these radios, but you need an independent infrastructureless solution in a place like this. Now, even if phones worked, they're a miserable solution for what we're trying to do here. I mean, imagine trying to manage people shooting while you're looking down at your phone texting, or while you're trying to see in direct sunlight read your screen, or you drop your phone in the Texas rocky soil and you shatter your screen right in the middle of a scenario, right? These radios are durable. They do the job. They're the right tool for the job, even if phones are available. But I definitely think you would need something like this for an event, even if phones were working. I also want to point out that these are kind of consumer grade business radios. These are not your Motorola, Kenwood, ICOM, high end, Viking, EF Johnson stuff that your public service and your police and fire EMS and high end business radios are going to offer. These are about 10% or less of the cost of those radios. They do the job great. They have all the same features and ironically a lot more features. And so this is something that a lot of people will turn their nose up on recommending a consumer grade radio. And I would challenge them, see if you can program in NOAA weather stations on a UHF monoband Motorola XTS 5000, right? Can you put NOAA in there? You can't, because it's a UHF only radio. So you cannot monitor NOAA weather stations while you run your event. doesn't work. You'd need a second radio for it. This radio is dual band. It's very versatile. So if I need to take this same fleet of radios into an urban environment for a wedding or for some sort of festival or a concert or an event where I'm in and around structures, I don't need to buy an entire separate set of radios for UHF. I just program in UHF frequencies and it works there. Almost all of your commercial radios, until you get into very high end radios, are monoband. They're almost always in the staff there at the YO Ranch. They had UHF Motorola radios. They were XPR 6550s, I believe. They were beat to snot. I mean, they were beautifully worn out. The screens all scratched and just very durable radio, right? Like I don't know how long they've had them, but they were taking a beating and still living to tell the tale. But they did not perform as well as our radios. We were able on VHF to do the job that they could do on they could not do on UHF. And they were running Moto Turbo, which is DMR, on UHF frequencies. So they did not have the same performance. That's something I heard. We did not A/B test them, but that's a comment that some people made, that ours were performing better than theirs. So that's only because they are dual band that we were able to use VHF in this certain circumstance. So I really like that. I like that I have the flexibility with these radios to, do all the things we've talked about without needing multiple different fleets of radios to do that job. So they may not be a Motorola or a Kenwood in durability, but they make up for it for sure in versatility. I think you're missing out if you don't take a good look at this stuff. All right. That is what I had for you guys. I'm going to look through your questions and comments, and then I'm going to get out of here. I got to go put my sink plumbing in at the house. We are so excited. We finally have a kitchen sink. We've been operating out of our master bathroom sink for several months while we remodel, and I am so excited to go finish the supply side plumbing tonight. So let's see. We had Mr. Landfill. We had Adam Hall, Dust and Decisions. Thank you guys for being here. Ransom, Micah Davenport, Run Gun. Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you guys. Mr. Spry, one of our alumni. Thank you, sir, for your super chat. That might be my first super chat ever. I intentionally did not ask him to pay me for something that I did for him this week, and he sent me a tip. So thank you, sir. We take care of our alumni. So I appreciate you being a student. Yeah, Ransom, you should get a 30 port USB charger. They're on Amazon. They're about $25. Where you run into the issue is getting your hands on 30 cables. If you just search a bulk pack, you don't need nice cables, just a cheap. I buy them by the 100 count, because we throw them in with batteries that we sell. But definitely, we should just carry this as a product. 30 port USB-C, well, USB-A charger. That's important, not USB-C. All running off of a single plug. So valuable if you're trying to keep a bunch of radios charged. I don't think it's a replacement for the multi-gang chargers, but if you've got a huge quantity and you need the compactness, and this charges more than just radios, obviously. So we use USB-A to USB-C cables. Unfortunately, the battery pack in these is not USB-C power delivery chargeable. So you need a dumb USB-A to C cable for it. But yes, we will get that on the site, and you guys can buy those from us. We'll just have a kit ready for you. Daniel's asking why USB-A, because this battery can't negotiate USB-C power delivery. You need a dumb USB cable that only supplies 5 volts. And quite honestly, it's also way more affordable than trying to build that. So, yeah, I think you're on a little bit of a delay over on Instagram. Run Gun asked about getting trunked up. I don't know what you're talking about, bud, but if you need something, you know how to get me. Brad said his VX7 outperforms a Baofeng. I'm very happy for you. But here's something to try with your VX7, which I was formerly a huge Yaesu VX6R fan. I know the VX7 has a few cool features. Try to program in a crossband repeater on your VX7, or try to find a headset or a speaker mic for your VX7 without UPS involved. Right, you can't order it on the internet. Try to get yourself something you can connect to that. Go ahead and try to charge that radio without the charging dock or a Yaesu branded cable. It's a great radio. Baofeng has its place, and it can do some stuff that you can't do with that radio. So don't, outperforms, whatever that means. Yeah, it can. You can go swimming with it, and it has a really good receiver. It can do 6 meter, 10 meter FM, which who in the world needs that? But it does cool stuff, not beating it up. But there's stuff it can't do, and you're going to be a little stuck if you only have that one. So, hey, Kevin, thank you for being here. Let's see. Red Pill Phil. After taking Zero to Hero, how challenging would it be to upgrade your UV Pro or DMR radios for a newbie? I'm not sure what you mean by how hard would it be to upgrade. I don't know if you're meaning like do it yourself. You'll be very empowered to do a lot of that yourself, not DMR. You'll need to take tactical radio operator for DMR. But for basically any analog radio you run into, you're going to be a whiz on that radio, hand programming. If you take our class, that's something we pride ourselves on, is you should be able to pick up a radio and program a simplex or a repeater channel, no matter what it is. We don't teach a specific type of radio necessarily. We try to teach it universally. Never seen one of that many banks. Yep. 30 is a lot. And the cool thing is they're only 2 amps per 5 volt 2 amp outlets at each port. So, that thing's pulling like only 150 watts AC. So, I mean, you could run hundreds of these radios charging off a single circuit in your house. Like it's pulling almost nothing. It's pulling, what maybe a television pulls, or it's not a high energy consumption device. So even if your car has a little power inverter in it on board, it'd be great for that. So Red Pill says, how much more difficult to use? They're easier to use than a Baofeng. What a lot of people miss, what you get with a Baofeng is a cheap you get a cheap turd, right? It's actually, its biggest benefit is that it's cheap. All right. And it does a lot for the money, but it sucks in a lot of ways. For instance, you can't overwrite an existing memory on a Baofeng. If you go to save into a memory that already has something in it, it won't save it. And it will not tell you that it doesn't save it. It'll let you just try to do it. It'll let you drive yourself insane, resaving, and it will never save until you delete the memory you're trying to save over top of. That is stupid. That's terrible. It's terrible design, terrible user interface, terrible firmware, but the thing cost $19. and it can do stuff that for $19 is miraculous, and it has its place. But it's a miserably hard radio to learn when you compare it to something that, somebody took some time to design and had a brain. But we love it for what it is. I'm looking for Regenerative Orchard said, man, that 7-mile driveway is property goals. Yeah. I'm not sure I want what it requires to not only earn a living, the amount of responsibility you would have to earn that kind of living to afford that, but also the responsibility to maintain the staff that maintains that place. You would need jobs for the jobs. You'd need employees to manage employees. Not my favorite. ZBM2, thanks for being here, man. I hope you're well. Was just counting antennas. Rich Elb, good to see you. 54 last ones left. Let's see, anybody else in here? That's some Widgery. 54 last ones left. Yes, this will be recorded, but you're not here to hear me say that, but I will leave this up. I'll give away all our secrets. Let me reiterate, if you see the value in all that complication and you see like what we went through to set that up for this event, and you need it, but you don't want to deal with all that, that's exactly why I'm showing it to you, right? We will just serve that up to you on a platter. You can get a Pelican case in the mail with all that already set up. You change it to the right channel and start talking. Run your event, put them back in the box, slap a label back on it, and put it in the mail back to us. We'll do it turnkey for you. You don't need to understand all that. You don't even need to know that that's going on, but just know that we can take care of that for you. That was basically my purpose. If that's you out there, my purpose in showing you that was that's what we handle. Now, I also have an audience of students and enthusiasts that want to know that stuff, and it's also for you guys to know some of the incredible potential of DMR for TDMA style digital comms. Something about a yellow multicam black comms mini pack feels right. Yes, we have a Woodland mini pack that is running our 8 radio kit, and it catches a lot of glances. No, not ransomware as a service, although that is something else we could provide. When is the next South Florida class? It will be when we are invited back to South Florida. So go to the training tab on the website and fill out a class request host form, and we will get back down there. Pinewood, what's the best antenna for longer range for a Baofeng for operating in the wild? Springy, foldy, 1 meter or so. Not 100% sure it's the best. It's not the best. Those whips, those tactical folding antennas, they're not fun to deal with. They might be performant, but when are you actually going to extend that out? Almost never. I would carry a roll-up Slim Jim antenna to hang if I needed extended range, and I would run our foul weather ZBM2 whip. You can tie this in a knot. This is a quarter wave, very good American-made antenna, very durable. Not really necessary to go beyond that. About $40. No battery issues leaving them plugged in. No, there's a voltage disconnect in the battery. It will turn itself off. G Martin, you need one of these hats. You do need one of these hats. They are available in the swag section. These are USA made hats. I know it's a godless wasteland. Are you bringing any classes to California again? Oh, Matt, you're my alumni, aren't you, man? I remember Matt, the K9 guy. We might come to California if the right people invite us, and I think you and Steve over there are probably right people. So let's make that happen. I think I caught up on Instagram. Yes, we will cover DMR and all the tactical radio operators from now on. Let me get back over to the other comments here. Oh, Overton's in here. Thanks, man. Good to see you. What does a 3 UV Pro Essentials what does 3 UV Pro radio essential kits cost? 3 times 159, so about 550. No, about 450. Somewhere in that ballpark. If you want it with the pouch, it's another $70 for the pouch. And then if everything, you upgrade the antennas and all that jazz, whatever. Crazy how Steve says, how crazy how class really did make Zero to Hero. My whole team is up and running now. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. Let me know what you're doing. I'm interested to hear what you did, what you did with your team. We do try to set you up for success when you come take Zero to Hero. So I'm really glad to hear that. I am multi-streaming. I'm sorry if I missed it's been a few minutes. Sorry, Overton. I am not doing Whatnot at 5. I have been postponing that show for 2 months, and it's going to be postponed again because I don't have inventory. It's bizarre with Whatnot trying to do my business on Whatnot. It doesn't work well together because, at least for radios, because I am required to have them sent out within 48 hours. And when I sell 30 or 40 radios, that is hours of programming. And often we don't keep an inventory to support that. We run a pretty slim inventory for color options and all that. So I don't have time to order more radios and get them programmed in 48 hours usually. So it doesn't fit my business model really well. If I had 100 grand to put in inventory that just sat on the shelf, that would be great, but I would have to stare at that and not be able to pay my staff or pay my rent or pay the electric bill. I can't pay it in radios. So I prefer to keep money as money until I need it to be radios. So we keep a modest inventory, but Whatnot is tough for me. Like right now, I think I have 7 foul weather whip antennas that aren't already spoken for, and I need like 100 to be able to run a Whatnot stream. Everybody wants them on there, and I don't have enough of them, so I can innovate around that. It's not an excuse, but that is an explanation why I'm not doing Whatnot. I enjoy it, but it's not the greatest for this business. It was great to see radio content on Wrangler Star. Yeah, there should be more coming. He recorded. We were just at his place. I'm honored to be able to call Cody and all the people in this chat friends, a personal friend, and spent some time with him and his family. Our wives are friends. Our kids are friends. It's really cool. And we shot some more radio content while I was there, but I haven't seen it get posted. So he might have realized that I'm just not good enough on camera. That's my suspicion is why it didn't get posted, because I'm not cool enough. If you'd like to talk about it on stream, how was the CivTech meet? Yes, I did. Thank you to Overton. He had an arranged marriage for me this past week, and I'm not typically enthusiastic about that sort of thing, but he set me up on a blind date with Civilian Tactical, and I did have an excellent time meeting him. He is very similar to how he is on camera, just very enthusiastic, very bright and energetic, exactly like me. We're 2 peas in a pod in that way, but he absolutely loved the UV Pro. It was cool to just watch his expression as I showed him the features, just his jaw dropping more and more and more, and his excitement boiling over when you can send text and send images and locations and keep a historical record of every transmission for the UV Pro and the phone app. So he's pumped about it. I expect to hear some cool content coming from him. He loaned me a rifle to take to this event, and I did not have a chance to even take the thing out of the case. So I actually, late last night, we stopped back by to drop it off, and sadly, I did not even shoot a single round through the thing. But that just means I was busy doing what I was there for. But I was very interested to meet him, and I'm interested to see what he does with the stuff we left him. We kitted him out pretty heavily. I will tell you guys, if you, and this is something we ran into with him, if you don't have an Android device, you need it for the UV Pro, because you are missing out on a lot of the features that it has in the app. And I'm not making a statement about which is better. We all know Android is better. That's not really up for debate, but you really need it without it being the superior operating system for a phone. Apart from that, it is a far superior app. So if you have the UV Pro, go grab like a cheap tablet off of, at Walmart or off of Amazon. Don't go too cheap, because it'll be miserable to boot up and it'll have lag and all that. But definitely you need an Android device for the UV Pro. Do you still have access to Yaesu radios? Yeah, Garrett, shoot me a message. I can help you. Get whatever you need begrudgingly. I'm not a fan of Yaesu anymore, thanks to John Cook. I think it's Cuck is his last name. He's the main rep for their North American sales division, and he's not a fan of Radio Made Easy. He's made that clear. So I am no longer a fan of Yaesu, and they do not have the hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenue that I gave them every year prior to this year, because of his mouth. So not my favorite person, but I like their radios. The features are super cool. Mostly you just use that's true. iPhone works fine with the app for texting, but if you're into this, if you're looking for the wow factor, right, the Android app it shows the full capability, and being able to do slow scan television images right inside the app, or being able to have a log of all the voice chats right in the app, very valuable to me. And I don't see that on the iPhone app for some reason, and maybe that's coming. It is harder to develop for iPhone. They have a lot more stringent requirements in their app store. Let me look back at my list here. You guys have any other questions, hit it up. But this is being recorded, so this is as much for me as it is for y'all. I can come back and listen to this later for things that I need to remember that I learned. But I'm looking to see if I missed anything important. Talked about all of that. That's great. I think I covered all of it. So I appreciate you guys being here. I'm going to jump off and go do some plumbing. Place an order at radiomadeeasy.com if you want gear. If you need help with something like this, we do consultations. We do radio as a service now. So book a consultation with me. I will credit you back the cost of that consultation toward what you purchase. If you have an event coming up and you want to use radios, but you don't want to make the investment in 10 grand worth of radios, but you need them, rent some from us. Put them through their paces. Come to a class. We will be in Stoneboro, Pennsylvania for both Zero to Hero and Tactical Radio Operator next week, next weekend. If you are interested in this DMR stuff that I just explained, I will teach you how to set that up in that class. That's part of what I'm adding to that as needed. And I think in most of the classes we do, secure comms is very relevant. And so we're going to go over that in that class from here on out. So even if you've already had tactical radio operator, come back for half price and enjoy that part of it. And that class in particular, guys, it is so dynamic. It changes. It's a different class every time. So if you haven't, even if you've already had it and if you enjoyed it at all, which it's the most fun you can have with your clothes on, I think, in 2 days. And that's a strong statement, and it is intended to be very strong. But it's a good time, so you should come. Lots of other classes on the schedule. Make sure you're on our email list. We have a really cool giveaway happening this week. That's you're not going to want to miss, and you're going to want to enroll. If you want to host a class or you want me to come somewhere near you, we go where we are invited. So when you see places on our schedule, the reason they are on the schedule is somebody emailed me or submitted a class host form and said, hey, we have a garage and 6 dudes that want to take your class in Kentucky. Can you come out here? That's why we go there. So that's what we're going to be doing. Regenerative Orchards asked, what's the benefit of going BTEC versus UV Pro? Our DMR 6X2 Pro, the BTEC I've been showing you, it is a digital radio. The UV Pro is analog only. So all that stuff I just showed you today, that only works on DMR. That only works on a digital radio. The UV Pro does cool stuff, but it's all analog. So private calls, channel sharing with time slots, stuff like that doesn't happen in analog. There's plenty you can do with the UV Pro, but the BTEC, it has encryption and digital capability. The 6 and Overton's making a point that the DMR radio is also analog, so you don't lose analog capability. But it, for most of us, that is the UV Pro for your average person is a complete rock star. It does everything you could need to do within reason until privacy is a concern, right? When privacy or encryption is something that you care about, or if you're managing a complex web of needs like we did for this event, where you have all these different groups of people I need to isolate from each other, not necessarily for privacy, but for convenience, DMR is going to knock it out of the park, but that's not your average end user. So different tool for a different job. All right. I think I have gotten to every question. If I missed you, I'm sorry. I still love you. We're going to wrap it up, guys. RadioMadeEasy.com. I did offer, let me reiterate, if you want laser engraving on your belt clips, put it in your notes. That I'll do that for free for you for a few weeks here. If you come back and watch this, you're my people. So if you've been listening to this and you got this far, that's my gift to you as a thank you. That's a little value add. So just put it in your order notes. I will see you guys on the next one.